What's up, guys? Spin Firearms here, and today we're going to be talking about malfunctions. I think this is a topic that's not touched on enough because when people hear the word malfunction, they automatically assume or associate it with a handgun that does not function properly, which actually isn't the case, regardless of what people believe. I did a 500 round, first 500 round, 500 through the Hellcat, 500 through the P365 in one sitting, right? And they did great. But also in that video, while I was letting my mom load some more magazines, I pulled out the 29. I also pulled out my Glock 30, and I also pulled out my Shield and 357 SIG and shot some rounds through it, right? Out of all the handguns, the only one to have an issue was my Glock 29. Now, this is my bear defense firearm, right? When I go shooting in the woods a lot, that is where I like to shoot. I carry this on the chest. I carry it 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, but it's always on me in the woods. And it's never given me a problem. We're at 1,400 plus rounds, and I never had an issue before, but we had our first malfunction in that video. That is how I decided to make this video. Now, we're going to talk about some other things. P365, this model, before my gunsmith fixed it, had a serious issue. At about 500 rounds or so, 400 and something rounds, you know, the slide locked back with a round in the chamber, but was out of battery. And it was just completely locked up. You couldn't do anything with it. That was a serious malfunction. That is something that you need to consider. Now, let's talk about it, right? The Glock 29, it had a failure to feed. It was with some federal ammo, you know, the 10mm with the red tip. Not sure what coating that is. But at the same time, you've got to look at certain circumstances, right? This Glock 29, by the time we got there, we had probably 1,100 rounds through this handgun throughout the time I've owned it. We got there, we shot about 200 rounds through it. I didn't clean it since I don't, you know, maybe 2 uses ago, so it probably has 300, 400 rounds, which once again, it probably should still run. I honestly think it was just a fluke. Yes, Glocks malfunction, all handguns malfunction. So is this a useless handgun now? And the answer is no. I've ran so many different rounds through this handgun. I've shot hard cast through, which a lot of handguns have a hard time cycling, right? I've shot Buffalo Bore hard cast, Federal hard cast. I've shot gold dots, HSTs, Civil Liberty Defense, almost any kind of training ammo, remand ammo, literally anything. And this thing has eaten it, never given me a problem. And it was with the Glock 20 mag, so I was wondering, could that have been the issue? But at the same time, I've never had an issue with that mag. That's actually the mag that I carry with in the woods. So what is the problem? Honestly, a lot of handguns malfunction and have issues. It could have been the maintenance. It could have been the ammo. It could have been, you know, a mixture of all those circumstances that cause that. But am I really worried about it? No, I'm not. This handgun's going to keep running. I'm going to keep testing it, and we're even going to put 500 rounds through this in one video. So, is that a malfunction where you should still carry it? Yes, but I definitely recommend further testing on that handgun. That's why it's nice to have a rotation or backups in case you do have a malfunction. Now, I had a malfunction on my bear defense, but let's say it was the Hellcat, right? Which it didn't. This Hellcat has never had an issue, nor has any of my Hellcats, but let's say this had a failure to feed. Probably what I would do with it, I would set it aside until, you know, my next range trip, and then I would grab my other carry gun that I know is trustworthy, and I would carry that handgun until I vet problems and make sure it's not something serious, whether it's a guide rod or a guide rod spring issue all of a sudden, or a parts breakage, or something minimal, or something almost on its way out. That's why sometimes I even have my handguns looked at by my gunsmith for preventative maintenance. If I shoot a handgun a lot, I'll have them really look into it and make sure and see if I need any parts swapped out. Like my FN 503, I pocket carried that for years as a new construction plumber, and I destroyed that handgun. So I literally just called up FN, said, hey, can I pay you guys just to take a really good deep look and swap out any parts that you think should go? And they did it for me. So I was actually really appreciative of that, and a lot of people don't think about preventative maintenance. Now, failures to eject. Those are a little bit more serious in my opinion. Failure to eject tends to mean, you know, just something isn't cycling properly. It isn't necessarily the ammo. Failure to feed can be the ammo sometimes, how you're gripping. If you're using a longer mag like I am, it could be the pressure you're pushing that mag with is going here, and it's angling the round weird, whatever the case may be. But in the case of a failure to eject, that tends to be whether you are hitting the slide, stop slowing down that slide. It just didn't cycle properly. I would take that a little bit more serious. But if you run another 200, 300, 400 rounds through it and don't have any issues, then I wouldn't be worried about it. Stuff happens. Light primer strikes. Light primer strikes tend to be the ammo we're using, right? Defensive ammo is where you really want to be worried. That's why you always run your defensive ammo through your handgun. If your handgun can't run your defensive ammo, you should be worried. If you have light primer strikes with your defensive ammo, you should be worried. Your defensive primers are going to have the best primers possible, therefore your handgun should run that. Now I know with the P365, a lot of people thought that this would have light primer strikes because theirs has light primer strikes. I don't know if it's necessarily the SIG. I think it's more the ammo for a lot of that stuff. A lot of funky ammo, a lot of quality control down the drain from these ammo manufacturers. A lot of weird stuff happening right now, but I don't think it's the P365 alone just having light primer strikes. I just don't. But that tends to be ammo, but that is why you test your defensive ammo. Now, in terms of that malfunction with my P365, right? And what my gunsmith told me was it's out of spec springs causing the issue. He said he's seen it before. He reads about it on threads. I even looked up a bunch of threads, and it's out of spec springs. And it literally snaps or locks your handgun up or whatever the case may be. There's all sorts of weird stuff. Is that a malfunction that you would still carry with after? Now, if that's your only handgun and you get it fixed and SIG says it's good to go, then you would probably have to carry it. You don't want, unless you want to sell it and go get a new one. But honestly, I wouldn't. When I see a malfunction like this had, that's a malfunction I can't clear. That's a malfunction that tap-in rack can't fix, dropping the mag can't fix. There's literally nothing you can do to fix that malfunction in a time of need. It just is what it is. Those are the malfunctions that really cause you to be in trouble. If you saw my Springfield Armory XDS, I was shooting at the range, and on like the 5th shot, all of a sudden the guide rod spring broke, and the slide completely locked up. It can go back and forth about this far, but it can't go too far forward, can't go too far back, always being out of battery, and it looked like an absolute mess. It's with Springfield Armory right now, so it's actually taken a while. So we will see how that comes back. Is that something I would potentially carry again? The XDS, yes, because that guide rod was the problem, and now I know with the 45 Springfields, every 1,000 rounds or so, you might want to change out that guide rod, and I was over 1,000 rounds with it. So something like that, yes, but with the SIG P365 malfunction that I had, I don't know. I might carry it again if someone I trust, like a gunsmith, overlooks it, or he compares springs, he takes the whole thing apart and makes sure it's good. Because if SIG sent me a handgun that's out of spec, not right, then I sort of trust my gunsmith more. I've known him, longer than anyone at SIG, obviously, and he knows his stuff. He's been doing it 30-some years, so I trust him overlooking it. If he says everything's good to go and in the clear, then yeah, I would potentially carry the P365 again. But when I have so many other handguns that I trust and that will never have those issues, like you've never heard of a Glock having that issue, where it just gets stuck. You don't hear of that. It just doesn't happen as long as you're shooting, decent ammunition, whatever the case may be. But this one's more of a toss-up. But our malfunctions is a big deal. They're really not that big of a deal unless they're happening often. 1 out of 500, 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 1,500, 2 out of 1,500. Those are fine. If you've ever seen some of Honest Outlaw's video, like the Canic Subcompact, his had like 3 malfunctions in the first 1,000 rounds, and he can still consider it good to go. He still talks about how it's a great carry gun. So when it comes to malfunctions like that, a lot of it happens with the training ammo, and just test your handguns. That's what this is all about. Test your handguns, and you're going to have to be the one that makes that call. But for the P365, it's probably a no-go for me ever carrying this, simply because I have better, more reliable options. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.